Have you ever wanted to look and feel older? If you're after gray hair, switching to Linux might be for you. Hello everybody, welcome back to your Weekday Weekend. The main consumer versions of Windows 10 reached planned obsolescence on October 14th, 2025, despite still being a perfectly good operating system. Of course, Windows 10 doesn't send nearly as much of your precious, sweet, delicious data to Microsoft as Windows 11 does, so maybe that has something to do with it. I switched my main PC, this PC, to Linux Mint on that day. Please, to all the Linux lovers out there who have daily driven Linux for years and years and years, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I've used Windows since I was 5 years old, and I'm just an old dog now who's really struggling to learn new tricks. I love everything Linux is and represents. I love FOSS, and I understand a lot of my issues come from my own stubbornness, and this whole thing has just been a big adventure, and I've really just been trying to be brave and learn new things. So, if you have any helpful suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. For the most part, everything has worked flawlessly with no issues. I like how easy it is to update programs and Linux itself. I like how it boots much faster than Windows. And I love how it's the perfect OS for breathing life into old hardware. If all you do is browse the internet and type up documents and print some, then Linux is perfect. Like I said, the majority of my problems come from me not knowing what I'm doing. However, there are a bunch of things about Linux that are just not as good as Windows, and some of them are deal breakers for me. Let's get the big one out of the way. This one is going to upset some people. A large part of the Linux community wants nothing more than to shame you for not knowing how to use their precious OS. A lot of people got mad at me for my last Linux video mentioning the LTT series on Linux. The consensus was basically that the LTT crew didn't give an accurate representation of Linux because they didn't know what they were doing. That was my point. Here's the thing. My computer works for me. I don't work for it. And if my computer gets in the way of the work I'm trying to do, that's a problem. And when I have to stop what I'm doing and troubleshoot something for 30 minutes, that's a problem. Some people like solving problems. I like solving problems. But when I'm already trying to solve one problem and another problem gets in the way, I don't like that. The dilemma I'm facing is whether or not I want to deal with Microsoft's bullshit or fumble around in Linux for hours at a time trying to get it to work how I want it to and how I expect it to. The majority of people want an OS that just works. And unless you're just typing documents and browsing the internet like I said, Linux is not that. Now, there are a lot of things on Linux that do just work. A lot of the programs I use on a daily basis were installed by default, like LibreOffice. But then, when looking for other programs I need, I discovered that there were at least 3 different ways to install the same program, and all 3 methods could potentially install different versions in different ways to different locations with different capabilities. What am I talking about? Let's say I want to install Program A. Well, let's first try the method that I know from Windows. Let's go to the website that belongs to Program A and try to download the Linux version. Maybe it's a GitHub page, who knows. Either way, depending on the software, you might have tons of versions to pick from, and you may not know which version's right for you. Do I get the .deb? Do I get the app image? I know the difference, I think, but others may not. Now let's try using apt. I do sudo apt install program A, and I type in my password and it works. Great, but wait. This version's 6 months out of date. That's weird. Okay, fine. Let's just try using the built-in software manager. I search for Program A and click download. And assuming I found the right one, because there's 50 other programs listed as Program A, it's all installed. Great. But that's weird. This version's also out of date. It's not as old as the other one, but certainly not the latest version. And what the heck is a Flatpak? Why don't some features work the same as the other versions? Kdenlive, GIMP, VLC Player, Firefox, Blender, and LibreOffice all have this problem, and there are tons more examples. Now, some of these are installed by default depending on your version of Linux, but that doesn't excuse it. Then there's gaming. DankPods did an amazing video with tons of different gaming rigs showing the performance difference between Linux and Windows. The results weren't pretty. Many games ran worse on Linux. There were a few games and PC builds that did better on Linux, but there were also a lot of games and builds where Linux had 5 to 10% less FPS or worse. If I pay a few $1,000s for a PC, I want the best performance out of it I can get. The main complaint a lot of people had with that video is that it could have been made better with some tweaking or different drivers or this or that. But when I want to play a game, I don't want to fiddle with it for 45 minutes. I don't want to figure out which driver version I need. I don't want to figure out which settings don't work on Linux. And I certainly don't want to wait for Vulkan shaders. I only have so much time in a day, and I play games to have fun. And when my friends on Windows have already started the game, played the tutorial, and they're 3 missions in, and they're having fun and getting into a groove, and I'm just finally loading in, that's no fun. Let's not even get started on the anti-cheat conversation. Secure Boot and TPM are awful scams to keep Microsoft in control of your computer, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to play some of those games from time to time. Lastly, my Xbox controller only works if I plug it in with a cable. Won't connect to Bluetooth at all. My PS5 controller does, but my Xbox controller doesn't work on Bluetooth. I don't know why. Then there's content creation. If you couldn't tell, I make YouTube videos. I also do CAD and 3D printing. GIMP sucks. At least as a Photoshop user who's been using Photoshop for 14 years, GIMP just isn't the same. Photoshop works on Linux, but not all that well. Kdenlive is okay as a video editor, but I'm slowly trying to learn DaVinci because I'd like to be an editor for another content creator. Hopefully you'll see that coming up soon. Except then I found out the Linux version of DaVinci Resolve doesn't support H.264 or H.265 at all for the free version. You have to get the $300 Studio version. The free version on Windows and Mac support H.264 and H.265, but not the Linux version. Bummer. The few CAD packages there are on Linux all suck eggs. Please, Libre. Please. Just make a Debian version. Just Debian. Just start there and see where it goes. Please. Please. Orca Slicer doesn't work on Linux for me, even after a reinstall. It won't send anything to my Ender 3 V2 Neo. It just crashes when it tries to slice something for it. And now it won't even switch off of my Ender 3 V2 Neo. I try to swap to my P1P, and it just doesn't switch. It doesn't crash, but it just doesn't switch. So now I'm stuck selected on a 3D printer, which I can't slice anything for. I opened an issue on their GitHub page 3.5 months ago, and it still has no replies. And as much as I hate Elgato for turning the Stream Deck into a microtransaction-filled piece of bullshit, their own software still works way better than alternatives on Linux. It has more features and just works easier. I've also had issues with my microphone not working, which I've had to troubleshoot for ages. With all that said, I really, really, really love what Linux is. I love that my data isn't being stolen. I love that I own my PC and not Microsoft. I love that AI isn't being shoved down my throat. I love free and open source software, but sometimes FOSS just isn't as good. Right now I'm dual booting Linux Mint and Windows 10 LTSC, but I'm also in the process of getting a new gaming rig, and dual booting is a pain, so I think I'm just going to pick one or the other. So the question remains, Linux or Windows 10 LTSC? Because I'm certainly not putting Windows 11 on it. My prospective PC stats are on screen now. I haven't finalized this, but I'm pretty sure this is what I'm going with. I genuinely don't know which one I should choose, so I'd really appreciate it if you guys had a civil conversation in the comments to help me out. I really want your input. Honestly, I really do. That's it for this one, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Remember to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, on my channel, every day is a weekend. Check out the Discord and the website down below, which might be switching to Stoked instead of Discord. We'll see. And I'll see you guys next time, next weekend. Bye.